Hi, you're watching a very special recording of AWANI right here at the World Comic Forum 2018 in Davos. I'm at this small corner because this is a very established hotel. Powerful people resides here. Great talks are happening here. And I've managed to steal one of them out. And he's Nick Chambers. Nick Chambers is going to introduce himself and what he does, because what he does is very interesting to us. We spend the biggest budget every year on the sector of education. Right now, there's a lot of debates about our education. Even learning English as a dual learning program in school is being debated. And let's see how it fares in a more developed nation. And what are the initiatives being done? There's a lot of issues that we want to be settled, and we want to use education for them, like gender empowerment, like not being racist, like being celebrating our diversity. So I'm just going to go straight to Nick Chambers and ask him to tell us about his NGO that is really making education better.
Thank you. I'm Nick Chambers. I'm the chief exec of a NGO called Education Employers. We are 8 years old, and we started off in the UK, now doing a lot more internationally. And we started off really trying to understand how people from the world of work can help young people who are at school better prepare. So how can we give young people the motivation, the knowledge and the skills and the understanding of the world of work, starting in primary schools and secondary schools. So our area is really to look at the research around what can people, companies and volunteers, what can they do in schools that's going to have the most benefit? Because there are lots of initiatives and lots of people doing things. And we've been really thinking, well, people have got very little time to spend, so if they're going to spend it, what is going to have most impact, and what do our young people need most that's going to help them in this transition? So some of it's about raising aspiration, some of it is around broadening horizons, and some of it is just showing young people what's possible in their lives.
From that particular point of view, if we were to help the education system be better, we've got to assess the education system itself. How do you assess the education system nowadays? Because a lot of people still believe that the government has a big role to play, and public education system is key, because if you only educate well a slice of your population, that's not going to help the very topic being discussed at Davos, which is inclusivity.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you look at the work of people like the OECD and their PISA studies and all that assessment, and I think that's probably, they are the people to look at that. I mean, our bit is to really understand that interconnection between schools and employers. And where we think it works best, around the world, is where all the parties who are interested in have a dialogue and they come together and they discuss. So we think it's a shared agenda. Government have got a key role to play. Employers and representative trade bodies have got to play, and also the teachers and the head teachers and the people who are responsible on a day-to-day basis. So you've got a lot of different sort of people who need to be involved. And when we started, we were very keen that we brought together a lot of roundtables, a lot of consultation. So instead of launching an initiative or telling people what we thought, we looked very carefully and brought together the government, the employer bodies and the education bodies, and began to look at what was working and try and have a sort of shared agenda, and then look at all the research and evidence. So we were very strong on research from the beginning to try and understand what interventions worked. So we, over the last 8 years, have pulled together research from all over the world. We've done our own original research, and we'll come on to that later. But also there's some fantastic research out all over the world, and what we've built through our website, Education Employers, is a free online library that people can go in and search, you know, if they're particularly interested. It might be girls' education, it might be science or engineering. And so that's what we've done. We've tried to make sure that there's really robust evidence and you bring the partners together.
If I reverse the way I look at this, the employers are always complaining nowadays that the talents coming into the industry are not equipped. They don't have soft skills, they don't manage complex problem well, and they don't hit the ground running. So what you are doing actually with your NGO is, instead of just complaining about it, you're making the employers go into the education system, network, and help solve that problem. Can I put it that way?
I think you put it better than I can put it, actually. I mean, I think it's a shared problem. And what we see is everyone getting something out of it. Employers are only going to get involved and get their staff involved if they get something out of it. If it's entirely philanthropic, it won't last, because everyone wants something. Mm-hmm. So employers have got to get something out of the deal. Mm-hmm. Schools have got to get something out of the deal, and the government have got to feel they're benefiting as well. So we think it's really important to understand how the different parties can benefit. And it's a sort of, it is about equals. So I don't think it's saying, you know, employers are up there and schools are up there. This is a common problem, and we're only going to solve it if we work together on that.
Okay, I have to go for the first break, but once we're back, I'm going to lay the foundation a bit. And you have to work closely with the government and authorities, because in the public school education system, it's their ecosystem. But many people thought that we just bring technology, bring the networking to the school, and the school will be all right. But the ecosystem in the school is itself, like some of the teachers, some of the administrators might not be open to the concept of networking with the outside world, because they might be a bit insecure about that. They might have more work to do. They might just feel that they are being threatened in the days and age of the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah. Because of course, the employer's ecosystem would be way better in terms of resources and everything else from the school system. We go for the first break, but once we are back, how do you bridge that gap so that, you know, it's not a territorial thing, it's not anything else, but straight away they see the synergy, and then it can spark a new movement. Let's talk about that after a short break. Always proud to make great people at the World Comic Forum. And if you Google Nick Chambers, there's even a comedian named Nick Chambers. But this is the real Nick Chambers that you need to know. Because it's about education. Education is important. It is. But bringing the private sector, for example, to the school environment might be frightening to the school. It
is, and we've been at it for some time in England, and it has taken us some time to understand how best to match people together. Now, when we started looking at employers not being happy, we looked at some other studies, and we had studies going back 100 years. You know, there were studies saying, you know, even in the Industrial Revolution, people saying we're not getting the young people. So this is not a new problem for employers. You know, they've been complaining for many years, and sometimes justifiably. But our argument is that they've got to be part of the solution. We did 2 bits of research which looked at the career aspirations of 18-year-olds in the UK, and then we looked at what the economy was doing. We looked at what the economy needed over the next 10 years. Where are the jobs in the UK? And we did it by different sectors. So we did finance, health, agriculture, IT. So the standard classifications which you'll have. And we did a graph, and on one side it said, these are the 10 million jobs we think we need in the next 10 years. And on the same graph, we put on, well, what do young people want to do? And it was a simple bar chart. And what we actually found was there was statistically nothing in common between the career aspirations of young people. So the jobs are over here, and the young people are over here, and vice versa. Very simple, you can imagine that. Not a very high-tech demonstration, but you get the idea. And so it sort of showed that actually what a lot of young people want to do and aspiring to do is not where the jobs are. Now, this is not just in the UK, I'm sure it's in Malaysia, but it's around the world. You get different types of mismatch. depending on what you've been encouraging students to do and the incentives and obviously what the economy is doing. But there's this huge mismatch. We did another piece of research which showed that actually young people were likely to earn more money and less likely to be unemployed if they'd had encounters with employers. So it came sort of 4 or more encounters, which is now our industrial strategy, that actually that made a big difference to young people. And the reason it made a big difference is because they weren't being sold anything. They weren't being saying, you must go into this industry. And young people are very resistant to being sold
Correct.
things. But they're getting the chance to meet people from the world of work and getting trusted information from them, finding out what it's really like. And what that enables them to do is to make better informed decisions about their career options. So if you make better informed career options, then you end up making a better choice, and then you end up earning more money because you're better and you enjoy it more. Equally, if you're a young person, adults are just the same. If you're not quite sure what to do, if you maybe have a difficult phone call to someone or a letter you have to write, and you're not quite sure what to say because it's a little bit tricky, then often you put it to one side and you say, I'll do that tomorrow because I'm not quite sure what I should say to this person, and you put it off and put it off. And children are exactly like that, and they put things off, and then if you're not careful, they're suddenly then not in education or in employment. And it's not necessarily their fault, it's just the world is so complex to navigate on these different routes that young people can take, then sometimes it's very hard. I'll come back to your earlier point. How do you get teachers to engage? Well, the way we've done it, and it's taken us a long time, and that's why the teaching profession is so important, is you've got to understand really what is driving teachers. And in a number of countries, huge numbers of things are imposed on teachers. Most teachers are very, very busy. They work very hard. I mean, there are exceptions. There are exceptions to every profession you can think of. But the majority of teachers are very dedicated. They don't earn that much money. And they do it because they care about the children. So if you say, here's yet another initiative, teachers will say, oh, well, we're far too busy doing the last initiative you've told us to do. Or you'll get a change of government, and then you'll have another set of policies, and then another minister comes along. No disrespect to ministers, but they'll come on and there'll be another thing. And so teachers are often really struggling against this, and particularly some of the schools who aren't performing very well, because they have multiple challenges to deal with. There may be children about behaviour, it may be things to do with the social background of children. So they're really struggling. So you find a lot of effort go, more and more initiatives go into these schools which are already too busy and can't cope with anything. And then you say, now you must go and do this. So what we've done here in the UK, we've launched something called Primary Futures in primary schools. Now this is still fairly new in the UK. It's been taken up around the world. And we piloted it, we started about 4 years ago, by getting volunteers to go into primary schools, invited by head teachers of primary schools. Initially they went in to read with children, to help reading, or to help with maths. And that worked a little bit. But a lot of teachers thought, and probably rightly, that they're the professionals, they're teaching. So the volunteers are good, but they're not really, they were a bit of extra work, sometimes quite helpful, but not making that much impact. But what came out of these various pilots we ran was that the teachers saw that the volunteers coming in helped raise aspirations of children. And not just raise aspirations, but broaden horizons. And in the way we began to see a real impact is that children could see the meaning and relevance of what they were studying. And if they saw the meaning and relevance of what they studied, they worked harder. And if they worked harder and they were more excited, they did better. So the teachers like this because the kids are doing better. So if they're trying to excite children about maths, they'll say, oh, you must pass this government test. There must be some test. You must pass this test. And if you don't, we'll tell you off. And that's fine for, we need standards and we need to set that. But to go to the extra mile, you need to get children excited and, passion inside to want to learn. And the way we piloted it is getting volunteers in, say for maths, You might have someone who's an archaeologist. Now, you might say, what on earth does that have to do with maths?
Okay.
Well, actually, a lot of archaeology now is all mathematical modelling, because it's all very complex, and it's all about layers and doing computer programs and so on. So as a simple example like that, you know, you can excite children about what you could do with maths or with English. And so what we've seen is those schools beginning, and it's been a slow process, and the technology is helping, and I'll go on to that in a minute, but they see, I've got these children, some of them are disengaged, I really want them to be excited about studying English or maths or art or design or history or ICT, technology, and if we can show it's relevant to them, they want to do it.
Yes.
Now, on the other hand, we've got employers saying we can't find people with the skills we need in coding or IT or some of the more things that you're growing in your country, particularly on the technology side. But actually, you've got a lot of people working there. You've got some amazing people in your university system coming out of that. So if those were to go into schools and say, I've done this route and it's really exciting, the children think, oh, that's good. So what we're doing is something that actually benefits. You're getting the driver is the teachers themselves. They think, I can see this making a difference, that's why I do it. Okay. Equally, if you're a big engineering company, you think your talent pipeline, you're not going to have anyone if you don't actually tell people how exciting engineering is. So you've got to go into schools and tell how exciting. Does that match?
Well, interesting. I have to go for the last break, but once we're back, there'll be enough time with great people. How do you roll it out, and how have you rolled it out? How wide is the rollout of this initiative? How are you going internationally? How would parties in Malaysia, if they are interested to join on such initiative, what would be the path? And after that, I'll ask the more interesting questions like, how do you weave in gender diversity into this? How do you weave in multiculturalism and everything else? And why is it that we're hearing that the STEM interests among young people are going down and down? Yeah. So all those, only Nick Chambers can answer after this short break.
Okay.
I'm still here with Nick Chambers, and very, very interesting way from an NGO perspective, trying to match employers and schools. Yeah. I want to go to the next level now because, fine, let's say we've got it done. Employers and schools are connected. Some people worry that if you follow the employers and the industry too much, it will erode the sanctity of knowledge. The first reason why we have education system, we would only be blinkered to what the market needs and not educating. We're just robots learning new skills and technology to produce something. And that's why I want to layer that on top of the soft skills issues, the multiculturalism, you know, not going to the far right or the far left. Yeah. I never thought I would be discussing far right or far left with somebody from European Union, for example, but that's happening more and more. So your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've used technology to connect at scale. I mean, first of all, you need to have the teachers wanting to do something, and you need to have the employers wanting to do something, and the government being there, because otherwise that's not really going to happen. In our system, the teachers are driving it because they choose the volunteers that they want. They can search a huge database of people, and they can find who they look for that matches what they need to the students. I mean, in primary, we don't really talk about careers, as we do as we get older children, sort of 14 and 15, but in primary, sort of 7 to 11, children are growing up. You know, you're not trying to get children of 7 and 8 to be an engineer or to work in science or to be a farmer. What we're trying to do is to excite children about learning and about exploration of things they can do, and to see how big the world is. Now, what we know in England, and I suspect it's the same in Malaysia, is a lot of children are beginning to rule out options for themselves at sort of 9 and 10. They're saying, I'm this person, I may be a girl, I may be from this background, And this is not for me. You know, people like me do not do science, or they don't do maths, because I'm this sort of person. And they lose interest at 8 and 9, and then it's too late. So what we're finding is a lot of people who could have brilliant careers are ruling things out. So our argument is saying children must carry on learning and being excited about education in the round for as long as possible, and to see as many opportunities for themselves. Don't close options, you know, so that when children do finally make an option, they know all the different things that are around them that they could do. You know, do you do this? Do you start your own business? Do you do an apprenticeship? Do you go to university? You know, all of these different routes, and that's what we're really trying to do. Now, we're a small charity, but we wanted to use technology. Now, why should we use technology? Well, you know, technology is revolutionising the way we buy things, the way we sell things, the way we share knowledge, the way we meet each other, the way we go on online dating, you know, the way all of that is being transformed by technology. So why don't we use technology to connect people from the world of work with schools? I mean, you could do it manually and you could do that, but technology is there, so we think we might as well use it. And we've piloted this scheme with Salesforce, designed by Deloitte and others, and we've built a system which is basically a matchmaking system using very clever technology that allows people to connect at scale. Okay. So we've built an online matchmaking system, and one bit, the schools, they can search for volunteers themselves, and the volunteers are put forward by the companies. Now, your point about industry and so on, and being maybe narrow, we use the word employers. We do not use the word business. Okay. And we use the word employers for a very deliberate reason, because we mean by employers, we mean people who do from the private sector, from the public sector, and from the third sector, or, you know, so NGOs. Yes. So we have universities, we have people who work at the health service, we have people who work for museums, you know, so it's a complete range of the economy, you know, people who may be retired. So, you know, the people they're meeting is a range of people who have a job, which is very broad. So we're not just saying you must meet people who are engineers. I mean, that's obviously economically important, but actually people who work in performing arts and dance and theatre or TV or films, you know, indeed your profession. We've also made it very, very easy, because people are so busy. Everyone listening to this, you know, even got time to watch this program. People are still thinking, I've got this to do and I must go and finish watching this program because I've got a whole list of things to do. So what we've done is we made the ask of volunteers very light. We've said to people, would you volunteer an hour a year near where you live or near where you work to go and talk to young people? So very easy. And then you fill in the things. So it says, so would you do an hour? And then you say, well, what is my job title? Little sort of profile. What skills do I use? What did I enjoy at school? Maths and English or drama? A little bit, did you go to university? So you get a profile of yourself, okay? Now that profile can then be viewed by a teacher. So a teacher goes on in a particular area and thinks, I want someone to modern foreign languages. You know, we're introducing, in here we've been doing a lot of Mandarin. Obviously you may be doing where you are in English. And they think we need to excite children like that. So they can search a database and they can say, right, we want a particular sort of person. Now it might be a woman, if you're trying to get women empowerment. It might be people from different diverse backgrounds. It might be a particular subject. It might be people who've been to university. So the teachers go online and they see it, and then people are matched. So what you need is you need employers to email out their staff saying volunteer an hour a year, or governments, and our government has emailed every civil servant to say, would you do an hour a year? And then you need the head teaching bodies to email themselves and saying, this is a brilliant free resource for you. And then the technology. Now, you know, it takes a little bit of time and you've got to set it up, because this is a huge culture change. And it doesn't happen overnight. But we think this way of working is transformational.
What can I say? That's the best way to end this. I have to let you go. Nick Chambers, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
The real Nick Chambers.
Thank you very much.
Transforming Education, World Economic Forum back and link. And continue to watch us at Agenda AWANI, and we'll catch you in another episode of the discussion in Davos very, very soon. Good night. Goodbye.
Thank you. Good night.